when you first saw the film,
Yeah.
when we brought it round to your house,
Yes, I remember.
what was going through your head at that point?
Yeah, what were you thinking before you watched it?
To be fair, it was there was a lot of humour that surprised me. Lots and lots of humour that came out, dark humour, and as well as that, I think this whole concept really came to life. I don't want to give too much away because people are going to watch this, but you know how you made it, that kind of choice, I guess, that really came to life. Like I knew I was sort of with Mr. Lucky, but seeing how Mr. Lucky moves was really special. That's a clue.
I'm intrigued about, as an actor, obviously it's such an unusual type of project where you're essentially the director of photography as well, or you're moving the camera, you and the cast, and talking into a camera. So you're sort of breaking the fourth wall, but at the same time you're not, because the doll is a character. What was that like? I mean, did you have feelings of, how is this going to work? How's it going to look?
Yeah, I think that was probably the bits before, but one of my key takeaways from watching it the first time, and I've watched it now again since then, but one of my key takeaways was something I hadn't anticipated. There's a dark buddy story between Ryan and Mr. Lucky, and that intimacy in their relationship is kind of that's what pulls the sort of ambiguity throughout all of it, I guess, and that was really quite exciting. That I was surprised by. I kind of knew that was part of it. Obviously we'd done it, but to see it and see how that came to life, that really stood out for me. This sort of dark, twisted buddy story that ends up quite tragic. Yeah.
Did you feel like you actually bonded with the doll in some way? Like, how intimate did it get?
I think I definitely did. It's a strange thing, and again, go back to that word of ambiguity, because we're not quite sure of whether or not it's in his head, or is this thing actually a being in itself. But watching it, their intimacy throughout and their connection building and building and building in this kind of dysfunctional relationship kind of way, I think that is one of the key points for me.
And like, with the character of Ryan,
yes,
like, do you feel that you could relate to any of the things that Ryan was going through?
Yeah, 100%.
In the film,
I think a lot of people can. I think unemployment is a high. People who are lost with what they want to do, who they want to be. I think back to my early 20s and the crazy period I was going through then, and I think that's possibly a lot of that is in this film, because I was probably a bit lost, and it is that everyman quality. Like, what is everybody's problem out there? And I think being lost, being misguided, kind of trying to make things good, but just sometimes making the wrong choices, and maybe not having the facilities to make those right choices, whether that be inside or societal. That's quite a political answer.
because when we set out to make the film, I mean, it was really the idea of working with the doll idea and the subgenre of doll horror. We didn't approach it in any way as we want to make some political point about declining masculinity or lockdowns or any of the stuff that was going on sort of around that time. But looking at the film afterwards, there is a lot of lost masculinity in the film.
Yeah.
And Louise is much more sure of what she's doing. She's the one who's got the plan.
Yeah, yes.
But I think so far some people are saying, oh, I get Ryan's side, I feel for Ryan. And other people are, no, Ryan's the loser. And Louise is the one who's got it together.
Absolutely.
And that's, I think that's great. You always want to get that split reaction.
Yeah.
And you don't want to tell people what to think one way or another. You just want to take them on a journey. And I think we've managed to do that. But I think the film, people will either buy into it and go with it, or they'll be, oh, this is too slow, this is not for me, this is too fringe. But that's fine. Yeah. Because it's a subgenre, it's POV horror and it's doll horror, and it's black humour. And every time somebody asks me what it is, I stumble a little bit to explain what it is. Sometimes I say it's a black comedy. Sometimes I say it's a horror. What do you think it is?
I think it's both of those things. I think it's a black comedy horror with a little touch on a drama thriller. That's quite a lot of genres packed into one piece, but I think it's absolute. I think you've hit the nail on the head in that. Ultimately, it is about a broken relationship between Louise and Ryan, and Ryan's trying to make it work from his aspect. Louise is trying to get through to Ryan and trying to keep them both on the right track, but obviously Mr. Lucky gets involved, and we just get to see it unfold. So there's a lot of drama in it and a lot of dark humour, but as you say, I think people will go along with it, and then some people may go, oh, I'm not sure what this is, but it's the epitome of the fly on the wall. But the fly is a character. The fly is Mr. Lucky. It's a strange wee notion, but I love it.
I think you coined this phrase. It's a Marmite film. I think when we sat down and watched it for the first time, I think that's a good way to people either love that or
they will love
just
it.
don't get that away.
What about your what did the style, the fact that you're working with the camera and moving it around and it's all in this wide shot, and it gives you all this room. What did that bring to you as an actor? What did that enable you to do, or how did it change the way you had to approach the scene normally?
The point of view is a character, so that is the third character in the space who is always there. So I try to think of it in a way of having that character always with me, and then, for me, ultimately, it's all about the other person and what am I doing with the other person and how. So with Mr. Lucky always being there, like his perspective, his influence, his peeping Tom aspect. Just thinking about through the bag. That claustrophobia almost always. I mean, when I watch it, that's what I think. It's quite claustrophobic through his perspective, or her perspective, or their perspective. So I try to think of it as, well, it is another character. It's absolutely another character, and as I said before, it's that sort of dark buddy story. So I tried to look at it like that in terms of, yes, the physical world of moving was a thing, but I worked with it. But treating it as a character and how they move and thinking about their perspective really helped inform and push the story aspect through.
I think what we found interesting, seeing it, because obviously we created on the page, and but then you don't quite know how it's going to feel and look. But obviously in a lot of films you get scenes where a character is on their own for a bit. They go to the mirror and you see a reaction and you see the subtext of what's really going on in that character's life, and then they go out into a room and suddenly they're doing the performance of their persona and so on. Whereas this film, like, a lot of it is capturing the moments where you are self-reflecting and so on, but it's also capturing a lot of the dead space in between the relationship with Louise in the house, and like you say, it's more of a fly on the wall than most other films can get close to, and that was fascinating. And I think the way that you handled that, not just the way you moved it felt like you were so connected to it, but the way you were able to stay in character and just show us, like, who is Ryan really when everyone's left the room and he's on his own and he's just then opening up to the doll. For me, it just gave us a really interesting window into a character's soul, and I wonder if that does help to draw people in.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think again, one of the big things for Ryan was, yes, he's trying to do all these things to be a better person and to make things work for him and Louise, but I wonder, was there any hope with them to begin with? And I also wonder, with those intimate moments, particularly with Mr. Lucky and when he's on his own, that bit in the mirror, he's struggling with his identity, he's struggling with where he fits in the world. And I think that from the very sort of top, like, why was he in that charity shop? Like, what was he actually doing? And it's something I'd find myself doing if I was in a bit of a low spot, just wandering around aimlessly looking at things and happen upon a weird doll. Not sure I'd buy it at a Japanese luck doll, but certainly not after watching the film.
Yeah.
So one of the interesting things here is that when we came up with the outline, because we didn't even have a script, we came up with the script after the auditions, based on what the actors were improvising during the audition, which was a very unusual technique. We didn't even plan that. It's just we then thought later on, it'd be good to have a script, but it meant that the whole process behind the film was very playful and very free.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can just descend into something that doesn't really make sense. But I feel that you always from the beginning, because we got you involved before anybody else, you seem to have a very clear sense of what this film was going to be.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting. Like, talk to me about how did you get that in your head? How did you get the vision for the film? And I think you did watch some films, and I don't know how interested you were in horror, but you became interested in horror. But talk to me about the process of having that vision for the film.
Yeah, well, again, this began with our first meeting, our conversation, hearing from you guys what your vision was for this film, this story. And I think that's key to any good sort of working relationship, like knowing from day dot, like where's the ballpark, where you want to explore. And you suggested, that it's found footage. It wasn't one I was like a genre I was totally familiar with, so that definitely helped in terms of finding the kind of ballpark in tone. And I watched a couple of films that made me go, okay, I'm now getting a picture of the kind of way we want to play this. And then I think, as you said, like you creating the script from as a response from things that people found and that you found within the audition process. I think that's really an exciting way of working. It's something that we do with my own company in theatre, where we make work from improvisation and we find a story. But what was great then, that you went in your response to what you had seen and you plotted out some beats, and I think that was great, because rightly so, it can go one way with this kind of way of working, and it can just go into chaos, and then you don't really have a structure, whereas actually the script that you created then really helped just sort of help me find the truth of the arc, I guess.
Yeah, well, I think what I found really helpful is, like Fionn says, we weren't planning to write script. We had an outline, and I think maybe we'd sent that to you and Louise, or to you before we'd done any casting. And then we did the auditions, and some such good material was coming out of that. But the scenes were also quite long, and we thought, okay, we're going to struggle to edit the film down, because at that point we didn't want to do any editing. We just wanted to do one unbroken take for every scene. In the end, of course, we do jump cuts and we move around a bit, but we thought, let's take some of the best dialogue and character material that's coming out of these scenes, and let's write it down into a script. And we had never planned to work like that, but it was a really fascinating way of working as a writer, because your actors are so invested in it, but also you're crafting it around what your actors have brought to it at a very early stage.
Yeah.
And I think that's something I would think about doing again, is go into an audition process with either a loose script or just don't even give actors scripts, give them directions, and some guidelines of where to get to, but let them find it and see what comes out of it.
I love that way of working. I think the freedom of it from both writer, director, actor, it's a lot more fruitful. And then when we went to rehearsal here with Louise and stuff, you had a bit more shape to things, but I think we were still finding things, and it was really something.
I think one thing to know as well from the auditions, and then certainly when we were rehearsing right before filming on the day, is there was so much laughter. Like, we couldn't stop laughing. Yeah. It was actually quite hard to get anything done. So, Louise is obviously a very laughy kind of person as well, but there's something so bonkers about the whole conceit of it, isn't there? That I don't know how you manage to get through it sometimes.
Yeah, I know. And I am a desperate corpser, to be fair. But Yeah, it's real fun. It is fun. It's fun. It's dark, but it's fun. And I think especially when you sort of said, I'll never forget asking you guys. So, Mr. Lucky's voice. Not going to do it now, but
Go on,
you know,
do
those
it. Let's
early
do it.
covers. No, we can't. Come up, watch the film, and you'll hear Mr. Lucky's voice. I mean, that for me was one of the biggest points in working with Jules, who I've worked with on a couple of things, as well. You know, we're desperate together where we can make each other laugh.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a moment, and I don't think we planned this, but you look in the mirror and you have this very existential moment where Mr. Lucky takes over.
Uh-huh.
And I can't remember, unless I'm wrong, that we directed that exactly and said, I think we may have said, there's a scene where you just go to the mirror and just
Oh my!
experience.
I know.
But
what
you
you're
did
talking
something in the mirror
Yeah.
that was such a great moment in the film. We all looked at each other and thought, that's it. That's the essence of what this film
And
is about.
that moment's become the centerpiece of the trailer, really, as well. And it was a beautiful shot as well. The way the light fell and the framing, everything. It was like a Taxi Driver, De Niro mirror moment.
What was going on for you in that moment? Do you remember it? You remember the moment I'm talking about?
This bit. Or
Yeah,
this bit.
the shaving.
Oh yeah. To be honest, I think I've got to go with Mr. Lucky again and blame him. We went on quite a journey, Mr. Lucky and I, and I think when you're working in this way with this slightly demonic, slightly spiritual presence that I'm investing in and having communications with, it just sort of fell out of this sort of twisted, and I think at that point in the film it's sort of a bit down the line, but it's when he's starting to get a bit more of a grasp on him. I think what naturally came out of that was maybe that room, maybe that the darkness in that room, there was just something that just came out, that sort of, I think, you know, like with Taxi Driver, I guess, is sort of, if he was on his own, which he is in quite a lot of these moments, like, how is he? What is really going on? And I think we get that with Ryan in these intimate moments where toxic masculinity comes into it, like a kind of unhinged quality that we're not quite sure of, and like, what is he trying to do as a person? And I think he's trying to project something to Mr. Lucky that maybe is not there, and at the same time, where is the threat in that? And I think it's sort of, I don't know, I'll blame Mr. Lucky.
I mean,
go around in circles.
You know, now I'm thinking about it, it's very much like at that point we have a window into Ryan's soul.
100%.
And the window is like, you know, a mirror into his soul.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very intense, but then it tips over into hilarity.
Yeah.
And it's almost like in that moment Ryan has abandoned himself to the madness, that he's enjoying the madness. It's like, I'm no longer going to fight it, but
this is it.
I'm going on the ride.
And I think
me and Mr. Lucky now are on this ride together.
That's exactly it.
That's a special moment, and I think for me there's a couple of bits in the film that just felt I wouldn't change anything.
Yeah.
It's always difficult when you know, we shot the film in 8 days, you haven't got as much time, you know,
Crazy.
all the rest of it, you know, you haven't got the resources and all the rest, but I think that and the job interview scene, and let's talk about that scene now.
Yeah, that's special, that one. Again, it's such a bizarre scenario for someone to, you know, a grown man, a grown adult, let's say, doesn't have to be a man, grown adult takes with them a toy, and then this toy, which could be, I mean, you know, we talk about mental health, and there's a lot in this, I guess, is about mental health, but if you work with autism, sometimes people have like a regulator that calms them down. Whereas Mr. Lucky might act as a regulator, but actually there's something more sinister at play.
He's almost like an up-regulator.
He's yeah. And when he gets going, and certainly in the job interview scene where, you know, he takes it out, he puts it between lovely Ruth and me, and it just escalates from there.
In your performance, did you feel like when the script or the scenes were giving you permission to engage with Mr. Lucky, like that turning point when he sees him in the bag and pulls him out, did you feel yourself tapping into something different, a different energy then?
100%. I think any time I interact with him, and it's interesting, I watched it the other day, and as you go through these little beats of these interactions with Mr. Lucky as it progresses, that kind of relationship, it's almost like he's asking permission from Mr. Lucky, and when he's given permission by somebody else to bring Mr. Lucky into play, I think it even happens with Louise at one point where she goes okay, and that she's all right with Mr. Lucky briefly. But the fact remains that it sort of allows him to be more free with his inner self, and that can end in disastrous results, as we see throughout the course of the film. But in the job interview, I think, yes, he's trying to impress, but who's he really trying to impress? I think he's actually trying to impress Mr. Lucky, and as I say, with this dark buddy story thing that runs through, I feel like they're given permission that moment to basically almost flank this job interviewer. It's like, you're going to give us this job because we're both pitching here. And I mean, rightly so, with the job interview, they're kind of like, what is happening? What is going on? Who is this guy? Who is this doll? Mr. Lucky. Oh, okay, great. Hello? Can I get out of here, please?
I think what I love about that scene is that Ryan is obviously very unsure of himself in that situation. He doesn't want to talk about teaching, and probably doesn't really want this job. Feels he should get the job to save his relationship and sanity perhaps. But he goes from a place of being so unsure of what's going on and tripping over his words to being completely in control, turning the whole thing on its head. So by the time he's told the Mr. Lucky story, it's his great moment.
This is it. And
then he's almost horrified, or there's a kind of element of surprise and horror that he's actually been given the job. So it turns round on its head again. There's so many things going on. Anxiety, uncertainty, control, confidence. And then absolute surprise, but almost kind of the horror of I'm gonna have to do this job, and I immediately will have to blow that up. But it's only now I'm thinking about it that these things, these things, they came in through your fantastic improvisation with that scene, and maybe subconscious stuff that me and Toby put there we haven't even thought about. The only thing that was conscious about the construction of that scene was the fact that Ryan was going to sell something, and it was going to be Mr. Lucky.
See, that's actually based on a real thing.
Well, when you do the selling of the pen or something.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's maybe a lot of people couldn't recognise it, but I went to a job interview one time, and there were 6 or 7 of us doing a group sort of interview session, and the line manager said, right, we'd love you to pick an item off the desk and then sell it. And being a bit polite, I let everyone get their things, interesting things with lots of writing on, things to comment on. And I ended up, there was one thing left, and it was just this really bland looking teaspoon.
It was a teaspoon. It was a teaspoon.
It was a teaspoon.
As well.
I was kind of thinking, was it a pen? I thought it was a teaspoon. I had this clear memory of this teaspoon.
So I got this teaspoon, and then we had like a minute to sit down and think about how we're going to pitch this. And in my head, I just created this monologue about, the ergonomic design of the teaspoon and how it was an engineering marvel, and it was going to save you time because it would balance right and not drop the milk on the floor. And I just came up with all the biggest crap that I could think, but they actually loved it because the whole point was to show a bit of personality in sales. and everybody else was struggling a bit and just reading ingredients off
Yeah.
food whatever. And I just thought I absolutely nailed that, and so that came into it with Mr. Lucky.
100%.
It's actually quite an interesting device, isn't it?
Well, it's a total, how do I say that in a nice way? It's kind of just a comic comment on that ridiculous element of sales jobs.
Yeah.
I had to work for a homeless charity. You can guess who that is. And I was on the street going, hello, all right, sir, can I talk to you about the problem with homelessness in the world? Would you sign up, et cetera, et cetera. And I had a pen in the interview. I had a pen to sell. Right. And I just went, I'll just blag it. I wasn't really going to think too hard about how to sell a biro pen with a little black lid. I came up with absolute nonsense and said that the lid was multi-flexible. It was crap. But they gave me the job.
Yeah, that's it. It makes you realise how much of life is just about blag.
Yeah,
and Ryan's not only
a
blagging his way through a job interview, he's actually blagging his way through life, because he's not able to hold down a sensible job like teaching or whatever. And instead he's kind of at home doing crap floor exercises and having life coaching
listening
sessions.
to bad trance music.
Yeah. I think we can all relate to that. We've all been there.
We've definitely been there.
And I think a lot of blokes can relate to that feeling, even if they haven't been there physically. They've been there mentally. I've checked out of my job now, and I'm somewhere else. And something inanimate then takes on a lot of significance.
This is it. And I think you're bang on. Ironically, I left teaching as well as Ryan, so I have a lot to relate in Ryan in recent years, and I think it's that thing of not really being able to hold down a steady, sensible, serious job, or what you can look at that way, however you want to. But then is it that Ryan maybe has always been a wee bit of a dreamer, always been a wee bit not quite with everybody else? I think that's very much in there with Ryan, and that's why his imagination gets captured with Mr. Lucky, and then again it brings in this sort of element within the job interview of he can get the sales job, no problem, because he's using his imagination, but his imagination falters when Mr. Lucky starts to take charge and in the dire straits that it does. Yeah.
There's a strong feeling in the film, at least someone that I perceive, of claustrophobia, and even the location when we filmed it, the house. It's not particularly that much to look at within that house.
Yeah.
But there was a kind of slightly creepy vibe that was kind of either in the house or created by us being in the house with that story.
Yeah.
And those scenes when we broke out of the house became very important. And I think that job interview is so needed. It's like coming up for fresh air, isn't it?
Yeah, for
here's
sure.
the real world.
Yeah, there is a world
and then
beyond
back into
ours.
this claustrophobic situation.
Yeah.
And by the end, the real moments of horror is in the cellar later on. And I can remember when we were filming that, genuinely feeling quite disturbed physically. I think Louise looked at me at one point and said, "Are you all right?" And I said, "I don't know." I picked up on some of the horror.
Yeah.
That was going on, and that just shows how much I think, tribute to what you were going through, that you were making something real from a deep place. And I think that's, for me, what good acting is. And you were really inhabiting that character, and I think it held the film together, because I think these things can go badly wrong.
Yeah.
When you don't have much crew and much time, and it's all been made pretty fast.
Yeah.
And I there was a period of time where I was doubting what we were doing. Some difficult things happened on the shoot, to put it mildly.
Yeah.
But I think that your ability to focus and keep Ryan alive and consistent was great, and so ultimately very proud of what came out of it. What are your reflections on the shoot, and how were you feeling during the process, and how did you work with the other actors?
Yeah. Well, thank you to you guys for having me involved. And I knew I was in good hands from the first meeting. I think an actor's job is to stay focused, but also with the directing relationship between the actor and the director, if you guys aren't clear with what you want, it makes our lives very difficult. And you guys knew straight away what you wanted. And the team that you created, you know, I thought were brilliant. And, you know, with the actors, we had such fun. It was great, sort of.
Did you have a particular scene or group of scenes that were special or just unique in the film?
Yeah, I get. There's a lot in there I would choose from. The dinner scene with Louise was a lot of the stuff with Lou. You know, we get into the territory of a not nice domestic situation there towards the end, and it's quite dark and and scary. And yeah, I think there was a lot of generosity there. Which was nice. The job interview scene, absolutely. The stuff with Ross. I'll never forget that day of filming, really. You know, particularly the headstrom. This is what they didn't see.
Yeah, tell us
behind the scenes.
Tell us about that.
So when we first meet Ross's character on the bench, we had a bit of a sound issue because somebody was out trimming a hedge, and.
The irony with that was that was the council, the local council, who we paid money to film in that park.
Oh my God,
and they were cutting the hedge.
That is hilarious.
So, you know, miscommunication
between
different departments of the local council. Anyway, sorry.
No, absolutely. I didn't know that. That makes it even funnier. And so this sound was consistent and just didn't stop. And we thought, oh God, we're going to have to get them to be quiet. But obviously, cutting hedges, you're going to have the sound defenders on, which I'm sure this guy did. And Ross went, right. You could almost see him just pulling everything, right, okay, I'll have a word, don't worry, don't have a word. So helpful, runs up, and for a period of maybe 10 minutes, it was just Ross going, here mate, here mate, and you just hear it, here mate, and that was it. Like, I mean, we had a lot of laughter on this shoot with everybody, with Jules, like, you know, amazing, so much fun, and that particular moment was very, very funny. I learned a lot, like, you know, I'm always learning on this job, which is exciting, from other actors, and a lot from everybody, and from you guys. It was just a joy, real joy.
What would be your, you know, hopes for the film going forward? You know, we're now at a point where the film's almost available to the public. It's going to be going on the platforms quite soon. I know some of your family have watched it.
They have watched it.
What have your family reacted to?
Yeah, well, only one of them has actually watched it yet, because my mum's struggling with how to find the thing. I'll help her and she'll watch it. No, what did she say? My aunt said that she really enjoyed it. She really loved the scenes with David, the therapy scenes, where, again, some of those moments are just hilarious. Like, that was hard. In fact, there was one time I definitely corpsed a couple of times with David, because he's just got, I mean, he reminded me of Uri Geller, like, just how he is. It was perfect, really.
David was so deadpan in his performance, and I never forget his audition. Do you remember?
Yeah, absolutely. You were on the audition. Yeah, of course you were.
Yeah, the audition we did with David was classic, you know, because we gave didn't we? We gave David a brief and said, here's the objective for the scene, this is where you need to get to, and of course that's what you understood the scene was about.
Yeah.
But he absolutely was resolute in going the other way and saying no, and he just kept, I can't remember what the context was, but he kept veering off, and we just thought, he's changed the scene, and I'm looking at you on the Zoom thinking, how is this going to work? And I thought, that there's an actor who's brave enough to completely defy what he's been told because he feels that's his interpretation of the character. There was just something so cool about that, and we just thought, this guy,
it was unpredictable, and I kind of loved that. And it carries through in each one of those moments with him. Like, the stuff he comes out with. You're never quite sure what he's going to come out with next, but he makes it like a consummate, well, he is a consummate professional as a performer, but he just comes across as this professional therapist. You're like, watching it, you're going, this guy, how does he make his money?
Yeah.
Why has no one complained? Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, in some ways, you could say that it's all his fault somehow, really, because he gives such bad life coaching. Effectively, there's a catalyst for a whole chain of.
Yeah.
You know, when he says, you know, embrace the doll.
Yeah.
Because you're at that. There's a point in which you're unsure whether it's really helping.
And he
fuses you even closer together with Mr. Lucky, and
again, it's that thing of giving Ryan the permission to be this with Mr. Lucky, to allow this relationship with Mr. Lucky, and that's dangerous. And you know, this therapist is coming at it from a totally misguided perspective, and he doesn't realise the dangerous ramifications until it's too late. And that's the kind of joy and terror of both of those things, because I think as an audience we start to realise before he starts getting really with his advice and stuff, we don't, you know, we're already getting a picture that this relationship with Mr. Lucky is unhealthy and probably needs to be stopped, and you know, Lou is right, and we need to help Lou here as well as get rid of Mr. Lucky. But this therapist, or life coach as we call it, he's sort of yeah.
I think that we've always put a lot of work into the casting, and we've never been, let's just cast, you know, friends, or or you know, or just immediately cast without much thought, you know, who's around. And I think we were very fortunate with people who were just, I think were fantastic for the role, like Ruth, who played
amazing
Michelle. You know, she, in the audition, she really did feel like someone who'd just come out, you know, who was working at a hotel.
Just great, like
just fantastic. It was all a bit of a no-brainer, wasn't it? Perfect.
Just natural.
You know.
Yeah, and then Madeline playing the staff member in the lift as well. She just had this, you know, wonderful sort of sweet innocence about her. But also which kind of drew you in. So hopefully it makes people, when they watch that scene, they think, is he gonna like try it on with her or something, because she's this kind of attractive but innocent figure trapped in a lift.
And the way she's kind of holding back that it's really not a good job, but like, I think you'll be all right. I think you'll be okay. And I love the way she does that. Because you can really feel her, you know, trying to put on a good face for what is actually probably
that day of filming
situation.
I'll never forget, really, because you know, that was an operating lift in a very busy workspace. So we had Wakar underneath in a tiny, I mean, you could only fit 3 of us. He was lying on the floor and myself.
Yeah, tell us a bit about that. So for people who don't know, you know, anything about who the crew were and how we had to film that, tell us about that lift scene.
So that lift scene was quite, I mean, in terms of the making, it was comical. So myself, Wakar, and Madeline, we were in this very tiny lift. Wakar had to lie on the floor, but it was still an operating lift. So people were going, and we got, with the film, and you know, we had a few issues and whatever, just getting it going, and we hit lunchtime. So people in the office were then coming in, and I'll never forget this moment. I think he might have been European. This chap came in, young chap, quite trendy looking chap, came in. Just stood, Wakar at his feet, me just sort of there holding a camera up at him, and then Madeline in the corner going, door shuts, he rides the lift, we all ride the lift in silence. And just before the door opens, he just turns and he goes, "Are you filming something?" Oh God. And then we just all went, yeah we are. And then another silence, bing, doors slide open, he leaves, door shut, and we just burst out laughing. It was just genius. Absolute genius. That is one of those moments I'll never forget. I think that particular moment in that. And you know, when you were saying about, you know, just in terms of the story and this idea of claustrophobia, like that's one of the most claustrophobic moments in the making, in the actuality, but also in the story and how close we are with Mr. Lucky and what happens in that lift. And the dangers of the outside world. It's dangerous at home. It's dangerous in the outside world. And that, how you subvert it and play with that aspect of claustrophobia throughout, I think, is one of the gems of this film.
Well, I think that what happened to us is that we'd made our first film, Playhouse, and a lot of people appreciate it for the atmosphere and the lovely, beautiful mise en scène, the castle, the the
stunning,
windswept location. But there was part of us who were a bit frustrated that everyone was saying that's what's great about the film, which is just there kind of anyway. You put in the camera on it, and we thought what we want is people to appreciate the story.
Yeah.
You know. So we thought, well, let's strip all that away. We're not going to shoot another film at Freswick, our family home that's got all this, you know, beauty and stuff. You know, we're going to do something that's very different, like a play set, you know, with, you know, white walls. We wanted it to feel claustrophobic.
100%.
We wanted people to focus on the characters.
Yeah.
You know, and not just go, oh, it's so beautifully shot. Because this film isn't beautifully shot. It's quite hideous.
Yeah.
What it does, the camera does to the actors. And you're all brave to go through that because it's not, you know, it's not Hollywood. It's not glamorous. You know,
this is not Hollywood.
It's POV and it's disturbing and, you know, it's like
unsettling.
You know,
yeah.
And it's supposed to be. And I think that, you know, there was that very strange vibe during the shoot, and I don't think we really, you know, knew exactly what this was. I think there's an element of that always with filmmaking, but it was very strange experience going through those 8 days.
Yeah.
And you know, with the POV camera and the uneasiness and the claustrophobia of it, and then weird things happened on the shoot. I mean, on the, you know, pretty much the first night of filming, our uncle passed away. And that was hard. Immediately, like, oh, it was a family crisis, and we've still got to make this film. We can't leave the film.
No.
And then our mum's coming in to play Cheryl, and we're wondering how is she going to be? She's just lost her brother. You know, so that was got, as well as all the limitations around, you know, budget and resources and all those kind of things. You know.
Yeah,
the numerous times we found this with when you go out to make a film, all sorts of things get thrown at you or happen.
Yeah, life has a way of getting in the way.
Yeah, and I think you have.
Although it didn't, I guess. Sorry.
You have to you have to be able to roll with it and be resilient because, you know, terrible things do happen in people's personal lives, but you have to be able to use that. And it was so surreal. Like our mum coming in halfway through the shoot, we hadn't seen her since our uncle died a few days before. And so it's like the first thing is like a hug and I can't believe what's happened, this is dreadful. But yeah, by the way, we're going to need to all put this aside now and focus on the scene. And it was really strange. And yet, you know, we had a great time, lots of laughs, didn't we? And she was brilliant. And, you know, we were all in stitches with the voices she was doing and stuff.
Yeah.
So in the midst of this like chaos that we'd all put aside emotionally, you know, we're having this amazing creative time. And I think that is a testament to the power of cinema and to the filmmaking process. And there were other, you know, cast and crew who also had other bad stuff going on in their lives that were able to, you know, channel that and just say, look, we're here to create a piece of art, you know, something that people will enjoy and impact people. And yeah, as a director and a producer, it's an absolute joy to see a team come together and do that.
Yeah, I agree. And when you're in it and you're making it, and it's such focus for everyone. We, you know, film crews everywhere come together for a brief period of time, and it's almost like a vacuum. We're sucked in, and this is our world, and it's such a concentrated world. But I mean, in theory, it's a doctor theatre. I call doctor theatre. It's like, okay, I'm feeling a bit low today. Doctor theatre. I just focus on my work, and it makes me, well, relieves some stress. And obviously, you had a bereavement and stuff, so I'm not sure what the equivalent is in film. Dr. Film, something like this. You just could focus on something that could maybe just, you'd find, I don't know, a distraction almost. I don't know. Yeah.
And almost seeing the character of Ryan work through his own personal crises of identity and where is he at in life and does he have any value, and embrace, ridiculous phrases like, whose life are you living? It sort of don't mean anything, but sound really profound and important. That I guess in some ways that is, and be able to laugh at that, use that in a sort of black humoured satire of the kind of nonsense of our coping strategies that we often have for things in life, was probably quite cathartic for us, and maybe for yourself. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that it goes into this life coach thing, and some people find solace in life coaches, and maybe they do have a place where they're helpful and stuff. But you quite often see, like on social media, I'll not go to the specifics, and they might advertise, "Hey guys, are you having a hard time? Well, have you tried X, Y, and Z?" This idea of like a life coach and coming up with phrases like, "Whose life are you living?"
Yeah.
When people find help in whatever way that manifests, I suppose, and for Ryan, he finds it in David's character, this life coach, but it's really not the one. I think there needed to be an intervention a lot earlier, and not from a life coach that is potentially someone that just set up. He took a notion one day and went, "I think I'm going to be a life coach."
Yeah, but I think we're
I think there's actually a whole spin-off movie, isn't it, about David playing Alan, who's like the life coach who's completely bonkers himself, and when he's telling people what to do, things are coming out about his life and clearly some terrible out-of-body experience that he had that he references casually. And that's supposed to be a comfort to Ryan. And it's one of my favourite moments is when he turns the doll around for you both to look at it, because we haven't seen you in the scene, we've just seen from your perspective. He turns the camera around and your face is just this one of like horror looking at the doll. Like, none of this is helping, but I'm really going to make it work.
And I think that we're in an age, aren't we, where a lot of people want to turn themselves into life coaches or influencers, or and I think that's interesting. So you're going to get the phonies. You're going to have the great mentors out there, and there are some, but it's hard to separate out who's going to be helpful and who's not, because there's so much information online about how to sort your life out, and so many different books. And I think that is part of the fun in the film, and I think
sure
I'm really tickling myself just talking about it. It's just funny to think about when the film comes out of.
If ever there was a sequel, I think it would start with Ryan in a therapy session with someone with the doll, and at the end of the scene you realise Ryan is the life coach, and he's the one delivering the help using Mr. Lucky as an amazing device that's revolutionary.
I think this the other theme in the film, of course, is that of luck, and whether luck really exists. Is it a real force that's at work in nature? And I did think a lot about this instant gratification society where everything's fast and immediate, and if I can just scratch 3 bells right now, I've got 100 grand in my account immediately. And I think it was fun, and I remember you buying some scratch cards on the shoot and winning repeatedly. And and I think at that point it was very fun, because we were infused with this idea of where is luck taking us in this story, and there was even improvisation around. I think you. At one point, Ryan putting on a bet before he came home. I don't think it made it.
I didn't make the final cut, but that was hilarious.
Deleted scenes.
Deleted scenes and the stuff.
Check out the deleted scenes.
We'll have to release that.
That is.
Actually, that would make quite a good little deleted scene for social media. Actually,
it's the fact.
He's there. Doesn't he stand at the window?
He's on the phone and he's spying on Louise, and
on his phone, making a bet.
I'll just have a quick bet.
Yeah.
Oh God, no! Don't do it.
That whole the whole argument between hard work gets you these things. It's hard work's going to get you the mortgage, not luck.
Yeah.
But it's amazing how this is something that's at play in all our lives. Is I can just get. Often people say this in the arts world. If you can just get a lucky break, you'll get a lucky break.
That is the arts world, I think. You know, a lot of the time it is like, oh, you know, certainly in the acting world, it's like, oh.
That's what's bonkers, isn't it? Is that because we ridicule the sense of someone opting out of doing hard work for luck, but then we know that luck does sort of operate in the world, and things we can't explain, just opportunity, chance comes along in some way. And that's very hard to contend with when you see people succeeding and you see yourself thinking, I just need a piece of luck to get through because I'm working really hard. Ryan's been a teacher for years. He's obviously had some sort of breakdown or whatever. And now he's thinking, I can't just keep working hard. But Louise is grinding him into the ground. Like, you need to get a job, you need to do this, you need to do that. So, you know, I feel like Ryan is, hopefully a lot of men can identify with him because we all at times feel like we need that piece of luck.
And, you know, I mean, you know, I'm going to say this at the risk of, I mean, we can always edit it out. But I'm going to say.
Toby's bracing
I'm
himself.
going to take a risk by saying this, but part of the stuff like that, it's great fun. Part of the issue that Ryan has is that he's a bloke, you know, a white working class guy, who's feeling lost in a society or in a system that's rigged to keep him down, and he's maybe thinking, well, I can do the job, but it's never going to be enough. I'm not going to earn enough working, you know, in a hotel industry or leisure. And I'm going to work my ass off, but it's not really going to fix the situation. Whereas Louise is someone who believes in capitalism, believes in hard work. It's going to get you there, and there's a debate around that as well.
Yeah.
And I think that some of that resonates with me as the creative person. Is I'll put in the hard work, but at the same time, if I don't have to, there's going to be a way to make it without a proper job. I don't need to have a proper job. I can just do my art, and at some point, that is going to, you know, take off to such a point I won't need to do the proper job. Yeah. And so I mean, so these are some of the fun elements in the film. Yeah. These discussions around, you know, how the system works and what's going on, but definitely this feeling of declining masculinity. And, you know, and even films previously in the past were taught, you know, in the 1996, I think it was the Full Monty, were dinosaurs, were on the scrap heap. And what, they were all white middle-class men who feel, you know, there's a time they're grafting hard, but it now doesn't work. The factories are shut. And that's only kind of got worse in some ways in a lot of communities and the rest of it. So the film is speaking to that kind of disenfranchised man who doesn't know how to deal with what's going on, but ultimately tips over to being, like you've said, toxic and destructive. And what does he do with his frustration? Eventually, the floor exercises aren't enough, you know, and the trance and all that, you know, and eating bags of crisps, watching trash on TV. He needs an outlet. Yeah. And Mr. Lucky is that outlet.
Yeah, finding a shortcut maybe in to get a way up, or a way out. In Ryan's case, I think I'm not necessarily sure he's happy with a lot of things in his life, and he'll take an opportunity that, you know, with Mr. Lucky, even he'll take an opportunity that he thinks, just because this guy who's selling it. You know, he thinks, oh yeah, that sounds like a great idea, but is it a great idea? I'm not so sure. Maybe we shouldn't spend 20 quid on that. But you know, as you say, it's sort of he'll take a quick way out, a shortcut, a way through. I'll take a scratch card, maybe I'll win this amount of money, and then our lives will be completely changed. Because people want that. People do want. They want to win £1 million. They want to find a way to escape and improve their lives. And I think that at the heart of Ryan, he does want to improve his life. He wants to discover whose life he is living. But he's just misguided, and sadly, you know, that is his own worst enemy.
But I think that, you know, though there's a humour bringing in this Japanese lockdown into the house, which is something we didn't even know existed, which is strange to discover after we'd come up with an outline for the film based around a Japanese luck doll. There is something called a Daruma doll that exists, which is a Japanese luck doll. Yeah. That was a kind of fun element to this, but I think even though, you know, we're in this kind of period of enlightenment and reason and logic and all the rest of it, and scientific age and everything, there's still a lot of superstition around things, and people, you know, will often put certain objects in their home to improve energy or dream catchers or different religious artifacts and various things. And I think it's something that a lot of people can probably identify. It's not so far removed from how people operate. Is, you know, if I just you know, move things around in a certain way, it'll improve the situation. So I think Ryan, you can understand part of what he's doing. Yeah. To a degree. Yeah. You know. Absolutely. But there's a point at which it crosses over.
Yeah. And again, he gets lost, doesn't he? He gets lost within it, I think. Within his way out, let's call Mr. Lucky maybe a way out or a way to improve his life. Like, he gets lost in that, and then there's no turning back.
You know, I think the film definitely has a strange vibe that came out of something quite unique.
Yeah, and I think the location, that house, there was something quite. I mean, obviously, shooting through that fisheye lens, you know, there is something quite captivating, quite unsettling, quite nervy, edgy about that way of looking at things. And I think that house, although it is just a sort of house, I guess, there's something about that house as well that's captured in the lens, but even just the house itself that has a weird energy. And certainly down in the cellar, which we find ourselves now in another cellar.
That's right. Yeah.
This one's slightly cozier than that one.
Yeah.
I mean, the design of the house was strange. I remember we were thinking, well, where can we film the scenes with the life coach? That's not just in the front room. We've already got a lot of domestic drama happening, so we went and shot stuff in the attic.
And the chalkboard wall.
Yeah, that was really interesting, that when we went to recce this house and look round, which was actually the house belonging to the local vicar of the parish church, and we saw on the wall in the top bedroom this chalkboard. And we thought, oh my goodness, this is fantastic, because they can do the life coaching scenes in here and we can get them to write stuff on the board. And so all this stuff came out, and then we then worked into the script because we saw this feature. And what really tickled me afterwards is because we wrote all these words as people will see in the film, things like, you know, sex and manliness and I am the best and I can do it and all this just sort of crazy stuff.
I'm angry.
All that's written all over this wall. And we forgot to wipe it off before we left the house. So actually they will have come up thinking this film crew shot this film, and they'll look at that wall and think, what on earth were they doing? Was this to do with the film, or was this just some crew member?
They'll have a very interesting review for their Airbnb.
Oh, it's an Airbnb.
Yeah. Somebody will go and stay in that house and see that chalkboard and say it's lovely, but I didn't like all the weirdness of the chalkboard upstairs.
Messages on that chalkboard.
It's hilarious.
But I mean, we contacted a few different people to do some filming, and we had a couple of rejections of we're not really happy for a film like that.
Oh, really?
Right,
okay.
like, it's nothing personal, but we don't really like horror.
Oh no, fair.
And then
fair.
the person who did let us film the house happened to be the wife of the local vicar in Penistone, and
totally unfazed,
and said, "Oh yeah, sounds good."
Yeah,
and that was really fun.
Oh,
you know, not what you'd expect.
Yeah.
That's the last person I'd expect to be like, oh, horror, murder, death. Yeah, why not?
Yeah. Well,
is Satan involved? Bring him in.
Yeah.
Wow, that is so cool.
Yeah.
Would you like to do a sequel?
A sequel of Black Daruma? Yeah, why not? Let's see what they're doing afterwards. I mean, I'd imagine after what happens, Ryan might be in some form of institution or potentially behind bars.
Or in the life coaching industry.
Of course. He'll have his own set of videos, or well, that wouldn't be videos anymore. I'm talking like 90s. His own set of social media influencing maybe involved. Maybe he's even in cahoots with Alan.
Yeah.
I don't know if that would work.
Apprentice.
Yeah, Alan might use him as his muse.
Maybe Ryan will set up a whole kind of coaching program called "Whose Life Are You Living?"
Whose life are you living?
Oh, a TV show in America.
Yeah.
And Ryan carries the bags.
Yeah. I'd love to see that combination.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'd also like to see, what was Ross's character called? I've forgotten Ross's character's name.
Darren.
Darren, of course. Darren. What's happened to Darren?
The funniest thing I remember, probably on the film shoot, I mean, there was so many funny things happen, but was when we filmed all those scenes on that bench with Ross in the park, and then at the end of it, Ross looked at the doll that you were holding, which was the camera, the only camera, and he said, "Oh, wait a minute, is that the camera? Is that what we've been filming with?" And we were like, "Yeah, what did you think?" And he said, I thought it was something else. I thought there was cameras in the trees." And he was being absolutely serious. I just thought, that is just, what a guy. He's literally just acted and performed in this scene for hours, doing lots of takes, and he didn't know that was the camera. And so he's looking at this thing, thinking it's a doll, and there's some imaginary camera somewhere.
He's off a different planet. There's no doubt about
absolutely.
that. And,
I think it's interesting. Maybe Darren is doing some. I don't know. He's got some form. Maybe they're all. Even Louise has survived, and spoiler alert. Maybe they've all got these weird influencing sort of elements to their lives now beyond the events of Black Daruma.
Yeah.
Well,
maybe Ryan works for Darren in the white goods industry, servicing white goods. Oh yeah, the other thing is when Ross read the script and his character description said that he
as long as there's a steady paycheck in it.
Yeah, when Ross read the script and he saw his character Darren works in white goods, he rang us on the he called us up before the shoot and he said, "Just checking, is that drugs or is that something else?"
It can be whatever you want it to be.
We were thinking it was like white goods, like washing machines, fridge freezers, that sort of thing. All right, yeah, just checking. Yeah, I wondered if it was a euphemism.
I can't wait to get him in this cellar.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Love it.
Oh wow.
Amazing.
I think that's as good as covered.
Yeah.
It's been a great conversation.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Thanks for coming down.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
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 Amazing. And I hope the journey of Black Daruma goes well.
Yeah, indeed. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, let's see what happens. Whose life are you living?
Whose film are you watching?
Whose film are you watching?
Whose film are you watching?
Brilliant. Brilliant. Woo. People should watch Black Daruma if they like dark black humour and if they want to see something a little bit different.